When did the news start to filter through to you that maybe this is falling apart?
Yeah, but to be honest, it was not getting loads of encouragement in the build up, kind of throughout the day, and you do start to get a little bit worried when there's a pause like that, and the sort of news stops filtering through, and then of course, then we see the breaking news from Spain, and immediately, you have to go to the club then and say, look, is this right? Is this actually the case? And obviously, the way that they went with that story so firm gives a really good idea it was going to be true. And then, sources kind of coming back to you and saying, yeah, this is the case. We've been told today that it's not going to happen, or we've been informed this evening that he wants to stay. So then it's all about putting that news out there, obviously confirming it, and them kind of watching the reaction and see how supporters feel about it, which is not happy. And I kind of understand. I absolutely understand that opinion, because this is finally looked like Liverpool were going to solve what's been such a big problem for them for a number of years now. And unfortunately, that kind of ideal target has got away from Liverpool again. So very, very frustrating situation to cover and be across, really.
So, what do you think actually went wrong here? Because all indications were that he was given positive vibes to the club, to the boys involved in the deal, or they wouldn't have stayed in negotiating. To see it fall apart so quickly, was it them changing his mind with the guilt tripping? Was it the Stephen Gerrard, I can't really go to Chelsea kind of scenario in the last minute? Or was it a combination of everything?
Yes, that's certainly how Liverpool feel about it. Is that the player was put under an awful lot of pressure by Real Sociedad, and I think we could actually see that externally. I mean, we weren't all close to negotiations, but I think it was clear to see with them sort of pushing him to say, "Look, you're going to have to pay your release clause. This is how it's going to go down. You're going to have to force your way out." Doing that presentation that I saw Lewis Steele reported about that they sort of put onto him why he should stay, and putting that kind of emotional pressure on him and using that as leverage. So the feeling on Liverpool's side is that basically that stuff kind of worked. That they explained to him how difficult a situation it would be if he was to leave, and the player with his strong ties to the club kind of went down that road and decided it would be best for him not to go. And I think sometimes you can, the way you look at that, we've got to think that Liverpool are going to be doing similar things with Trent Alexander-Arnold in and around his contract talks. I know Liverpool is a massive club, but it's Real Madrid who may be with a club that's sniffing around him. So, we can't maybe be too critical of Real Sociedad in that, because, as I say, I think Liverpool are going to be doing similar things. But it's frustrating, really, because I think, again, from Liverpool's perspective, and sources certainly telling me that they basically had the player's word. They were convinced that he was going to come, and that was not just in the last few weeks. They did not just come up with this idea to go for him. That was before this summer even began. The player's agent was being sounded out, and he had offered guarantees to Liverpool that, despite the fact he turned down other clubs, he was going to move on this summer. So they had that promise in hand, and you can call that naive to believe that or whatever, but generally, people try and expect people will stick to the word, and if you act in an honourable way, they will do the same. But obviously, this is football; it's a little bit like the Wild West at times, and the player has gone back on his word. I think for honourable reasons, in the sense that he's turned down more money and more high profile to stay with his boyhood club. But that doesn't make Liverpool feel any better about it. I know behind the scenes, incredibly frustrated with the way this one's played out.
So I think, as you said, we can all understand the human side of it, and maybe not moving from your boyhood club. But two questions I think most Liverpool fans would like answers to is, if we paid the release clause or were willing to do it immediately, do you think maybe he wouldn't have had time to talk himself out of it? And also, do you think there's any way this deal gets fixed before the window closes?
But the problem with the release clause is because of it being that Spanish buyout clause, is that Liverpool's hands were tied, and Real Sociedad were saying, you are going to have to do this, as in Liverpool themselves couldn't pay it. It has to be through the player. They give the money to the player. He pays the buyout clause. So because that mechanism was there, it allowed Real Sociedad to drag things out a little bit. Obviously, the player's ideal situation, it would have been that he didn't have to do that. He didn't cut ties with the fans. Him doing that is essentially, it looks, from in PR terms, kind of looks like he's forcing his way out. So very much didn't want to do that. So that bought Real Sociedad a little bit of time, and obviously they were dragging things out in terms of negotiating with Liverpool. If they weren't going to go down that route, how would it look in terms of payment structure? So they just bought themselves time with it, and it worked out perfectly for them, because they were able to get in front of the player constantly. Once he got back, they were able to sort of drag those negotiations out and really, as I say, pile the pressure on the player. And and that's absolutely panned out for them now. In terms of whether this will be revisited or there's any chance, I would say absolutely not. That's certainly the impression I'm getting from the Liverpool side of things. I think the player has given a firm no, and he wants to stay, and he's staying. It's not the case that he's looking for another move or a move at all. He wants to stay at Real Sociedad for at least the next season or so. He's got a decision to make about whether he moves on after that, but it's there's no chance of going back to it, unfortunately, which is a big blow to Liverpool, seeing as, at the moment very much looks like he's the only defensive midfielder they've been looking at ahead of this summer.